Hey, it's Jackie here from the Early Years Learning Hub. And before we get started, I wanted to let you know about our subscription option. If you're a fan of our podcasts and would like to see us continue to bring you interesting speakers on all of the topics you didn't even know you needed to hear about, as well as accessing some really great resources to help you put some of the ideas from the podcast into practice, then why not subscribe? It is great value at just $2.99 plus GST per month and is automatically debited from your bank account. Simply go to our website, Early Years Learning Hub, and click on the subscribe button. Welcome to another episode of the Early Years Learning Hub podcast series titled Professional Learning Tapas, where I share what I hope are some golden gems of learning that inspire you to make some changes to your practice that work for you and, most importantly, the children that you work with to thrive. So this week I wanted to focus in on the important role ethics plays in creating child-safe environments that actually keep children safe, as opposed to some of the things that are introduced at a policy level that probably are a little bit more ticking a box. So the title of this episode is, ethics in action. So not just having a poster up, but actually drawing on the code of ethics to really help inform everything that you do. And Code of Ethics in Action is one of our practice architectures. If you're not sure what that is, have a listen to one of our earlier Unpacking Theory and Research podcast episodes. But when we do that, when we operate in this way, when there's an architecture of ethics at the core of everything that you do, then we're embedding child safety, because our code of ethics, our early childhood code of ethics, are founded in children's right to safety and high quality practice. In summary, there's lots and lots of, commitments that we make when we work in an ethical way. And as I mentioned before, there's lots of bureaucratic talk and changes to legislation, introducing greater powers of punishing services who don't do the right thing, which is a good thing, but also let's prevent anything from happening to children in the first place with what we can do. There's lots of things that have come into effect this year for Australian early childhood education care services that equate to a lot more administrative burden for on-the-ground teachers, educators and leaders, in my opinion, rather than actually contributing to keeping children safe. And I also think there's lots and lots of systemic decisions that impact on safety that we, as people working in the trenches, don't necessarily get to have an influence over. But there is one significant thing we can do, and that is, and this makes a huge difference in keeping children safe. And of course, the bonus of this is that it's high quality practice, and so helps that you demonstrate in the assessment and rating process you're actually meeting or exceeding the national quality standards. And that is when we draw on an ethical lens when making all decisions, and also when guiding all of our interactions and our practices, using the ethics as a standard critical reflection tool when incidents come up, or in fact whenever you are, number one, making a change to practice, routines, environments, the program, communication, or anything in general that's a change. As a general part of continuous improvement, number two, from self-assessment to looking at goals for improvement that include an aspect of strengthening ethical practice. But most importantly, I think when we commit to abiding by our code of ethics, we agree, or we automatically don't stand for practices or conditions that are unsafe for children. We speak up about our concerns over unsafe supervision or equipment. We challenge ourselves and our colleagues over our interactions or our treatment of children and whether they could have been more ethical. We naturally critically reflect on ways to improve that. So I don't want anyone walking away from this saying, getting the impression that I'm saying that there's a lot of things that you can't change. I guess what I am saying is what you can change is your own personal commitment to operating ethically. The other thing is that we support each other to ensure our colleagues feel like they can be ethical because they're supported to do so. And I think if we create that culture of ethical practice, we create an ethical workplace by being friendly, collegial, holding high expectations and ethical expectations of each other and our organisation. I know it's challenging, and I've heard many a horror story on social media about some very dodgy services about what is happening. And I know that, if you work in one of those, you may feel at risk of raising concerns or whatnot. But let's think about boycotting those services that are operating unethically. Make a stand by not working there. And of course, like everyone, I'm sure of our listeners, needs to work in order to pay their bills. So I'm not proposing leave that space before you have another job. But think about going, okay, well, if this is a space that doesn't allow me to be ethical, then maybe I need to find somewhere else to work. And my hope there is that if these very unethical workplaces that are not committed to keeping children safe and high quality practices can't find any staff, they can't operate. So I know it's again a little tricky to do all those things, and I get that people feel trapped, particularly if you've got a work visa or lots of different things. But there are plenty of workplaces out there, plenty of education and care services, plenty of organisations that really embrace high quality ethical practice. So keep your eye out for that when you're thinking about, making a change. And I know it can be so annoying to have to apply for jobs and look for other roles, but I think you would find it to be much more joyful and I guess fulfilling, and also again knowing that you've made a difference because you work at somewhere that's really committed to keeping children safe. But it is definitely something I think that we need to think about and take some responsibility as professionals to make sure that ethics are in action every day. I can't stress enough how important that is to keeping children safe, because at that very fundamental frontline level, we are the people that either allow unethical practice or don't. And I think the more you've got, the more times that you feel, I guess, brave enough to make it or challenge something that's, happening that's not ethical, then you slowly make a difference. And for me, I think it starts with the idea of really critically reflecting on your own practice and talking about the code of ethics a lot, referring to, drawing in on the code of ethics or the National Quality Standard or the Early Years Learning Framework when you're raising your concerns further up the line. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I hope that, if nothing else, it's inspired you to reconnect with the code of ethics and think about how you could draw on that every day to improve that collegiality in your workplace and improve your confidence to implement ethical practice, and also draw attention to practice that isn't ethical, because sometimes it's hard for us just to find the words to say that. But if we say, well, I can see that we've got some things going on that don't really align with this particular aspect of the code of ethics, what are everyone's thoughts on that and what do we think we could do to change? It can be those really small changes that make such a significant difference. And again, it can be the difference between you feeling really fulfilled and feeling like you're making a difference, I guess. So that's it from me on ethics in action and keeping children safe or creating child-safe environments. I hope that you have found this episode to be interesting and worthwhile. And please let us know if you've got any questions or thoughts. Share it in the comments section of the podcast. Reach out to us via our Facebook group or Insta or any other channels. You can put a contact us inquiry in on the website. And let us know also what you'd like to learn about for further topics. So what's another thing that you'd like us to run in a professional learning tapas episode? Love to hear what you're interested to learn more about, and I hope this has been of help. Bye for now.